Hello, YouTube. It's K2 Karama again, and this is the Philosopher Stonecast, episode 18. I was gone last podcast. I was at a concert that I totally forgot about.
Monomarth.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. They know how to put on a good show. Um, and of course, we have our regular panel here with Kenny and Justin.
Howdy.
And then our guest today is Aron Ra. Is that right?
It's Aron, actually.
Aron.
Aron, yeah.
Yes.
And Aron Ra is the creator of the foundational falsehoods of creationism videos on YouTube, and he's also the Texas State Director of the American Atheist Movement, and part of the unholy trinity, which includes himself, Matt Dillahunty, and is it
Seth Andrews of
Seth
the
Andrews,
Atheist
yes.
podcast.
Yeah. So, of course, I would tell our viewers to go and check out Aron, but possibly any of our viewers that I know of probably are already subscribed to him.
Right.
But yes, so I think the topic for tonight's show will be skepticism, and mostly this is due to the fact that there's a page on Facebook which I believe is run by a man named David Wolf or something like that, called Collective Evolution, where sometimes they'll release stuff that's relevant in the scientific sphere, and sometimes they'll release stuff that's not so relevant, or possibly stuff that's already been debunked, or just in general spirit science woo. And I'm not a big fan of misinformation because I think it does far more harm than it could ever do good as far as progress goes, because it is, by definition, misinforming people. In the most recent video they released, they went through a list of 5 conspiracy theories they claim are turning out to be true. The first of which was about wealth inequality concerning a Swiss study done, I think sometime last year, concerning the few banks and companies that control the world economy. Now, while that's true, it probably doesn't mean what they're claiming it means. The second of these was, of course, 9/11 truth stuff, which has been debunked by countless people several different times, down to the nitty-gritty of reading the NIST reports concerning structural integrity and how things happen. So, we can get into that. The third of those conspiracies they claimed were turning out were true. They included chemtrails, which I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with that, but essentially it's a claim that the National Defense Department is spraying chemicals by using aircraft. So the contrails that you see in the air aren't actually, water vapor coming from the pull of the jet engine, causing through the vortex process, pulling that water vapor in on a humid day and causing, actual cloud formations called contrails. No, it's the National Defense Department dropping chemicals to either control the climate or control people's minds. They're not really clear on that. And then the fourth one, of course, is GMOs, which they're claiming some studies say that they cause cancer, blah, blah, blah. The normal tripe that you hear from the tinfoil hat community. And then I believe the fifth one was UFOs, and how the governments from around the world are releasing their transcripts and, what's the word I'm looking for, dossiers on UFOs, but they immediately jump from UFO to aliens, and that's my big problem there. So we have those 5 topics. Anyone want to take a shot at any of them?
Well, it's funny. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna, go ahead.
Right. Well, I mean, I was gonna knock out the last point, which is the whole UFO thing. I mean, the unidentified flying objects. I mean, for the most part, the United States is we have the baddest ass Air Force. We have the best planes. We have the best technology, and we release it when we want. The only unidentified flying object out there, if there is one, would be us, because there's no other country. We not only do we spy, but we technologically wise, our military is more evolved than most of the militaries on the earth. We are the premier force.
We should damn hope so, spending 14 times what any other country does.
But not only that, well, we throw so many we throw so many darts at the dartboard as far as like what companies are given, what projects are given money. by the Department of Defense, by the Pentagon. There's so many darts on the board that we're bound to hit some. And so we do have the best technology. We now have the railgun to the U.S. Navy. That's been years and years. It was first thought of in science fiction and everything like that. But we are one of the countries that now have a working railgun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's similar. So the only unidentified flying object, and it's only identified to the public because the government hasn't released it yet, is the United States. So obviously, like you, Justin, said, I don't know why there's connection to aliens. It's because
it's culture is why there's connection.
Yeah, I mean, people automatically assume just by the movies they watch, just by the books they've read, just by anything they've been exposed to, it's automatically aliens. It's automatically a flying saucer. It's automatically these pre-notion things of what a UFO is, and it's always alien.
Well, it could also be visitors from the future.
Oh yeah.
Eric von Däniken did that thing, the Chariots of the Gods and all like this. This is one of the books that I was given as a kid. Talk about, skepticism. I was trained to be not skeptical. I was told to believe everything that I read. I was told to believe that everything that I see on TV, and certainly if I see it in the news, whether it's on TV news or it's on the newspaper, I'm supposed to believe it all. And we have had in our Air Force, for example, we've actually created flying saucers of one type or another. We had the SR-71, right, which we used in the 1960s, but didn't admit existed until the 1980s. Now, the logical thing is if we had this thing for 20 years and we never admitted that we had it, then when we finally do admit that we have it, is it not obvious that we've got something else that we haven't admitted to yet, and that 10 years from now we'll finally owe up to that when we have something better?
It seems like a likely scenario.
Yeah.
What I find funny now is you have the companies that make the Department of Defense contractors. You have Lockheed Martin. You have you have General Industries. You have General Dynamics. Sorry, you have what's the other? But you have the big public companies. These are shareholding companies. They're public companies. Their shares trade on the stock markets. I can buy them, basically meaning I can buy into war. They're now releasing videos, commercials. I don't know if you guys have seen these commercials yet, but they're actually they're now forecasting these planes the futuristic planes they're building. Recently it was Lockheed Martin. They had a series of commercials where they would show you just a little bit more of their new generation of stealth bomber. And of course they pitched it as being helpful to the United States and helping take down terrorism and helping protecting the American people. That was their main pitch. But the side pitch was they had all these cool graphics and all this mysterioism and everything like that towards this new plane.
And I'm pretty sure I've seen at least one of them. I live close to the Warner Robins Air Force Base, and I see them flying back and forth because I live in Macon, so I always see them flying up in the sky. And I have seen them at night, some strange aircraft that I haven't seen before, but I could tell that it was something more advanced that we had, but nothing futuristic like a.
I don't think we really have much futuristic stuff anymore because the latest fighter jet that we got, the latest fighter that we got for the military was not as good as the one we already had.
Mm-hmm.
So
right, lost in a dogfight.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff about I can't remember what they call it, a pulse jet or something along those lines. Okay, maybe we have that. Maybe we do. Maybe we did achieve some kind of technology that qualifies for a better spy plane, but we certainly didn't get anything for conventional use.
Yeah,
and I don't even know that we've gotten that.
How much money did we sink into the Y-35 or whatever it's called? I think it's like $1.2 trillion into an over-featured jet that screwed up.
Yeah. You talk about our mildly dysfunctional or not competitive fighter that we have now.
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing is that amount of money could have paid for the entire tuition of the entire United States about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
well, we don't want smart people. We want obedient people.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, here's the thing: a university isn't like Lockheed Martin. They don't make a profit. They can't be a public company, so they can't then earn for shareholders. They then, because who are shareholders? Who owns who buys shares continuously? Who lends their wealth into these hedge funds institutions in order to earn more on their money? Who does that? People who already have that money. Okay, that's how their wealth grows from each generation. It's not because the businesses they originally started with are the same. If you look at it, the major families that built Ford, they're no longer invested majority into their companies. Walmart isn't. Comcast isn't. You have these numerous companies that were started by families that, like Johnson and Johnson also as well, where they were started by families, but these families don't even own these companies anymore. They only own fractions of them. And it's because these businesses have deteriorated, but these families are still very wealthy because they buy into the stock market. They lend their money to hedge funds, which then triple their money or lose their money, and they build upon that wealth on other industries, on other companies. So a university which doesn't make a profit on any of the students, technically, that it brings out, even though there is a profit in the future to come from this person, there is productivity, there is some measure of wealth that
There's return of wealth to the community that they decide to live in is what actually happens. But
at least with the science departments, I mean, you're going to do scientific research on site at the universities.
Right, and they found that even things like art, are economically beneficial to the areas in which they accept that type of industry. It's thought of. It's even made fun of. Oh, the artists going to college for art and drawing, but it's actually an economic benefit to any area that accepts it.
I went to college as an art major because I was an idiot. You don't become a famous artist because you went to college for it.
No, it's really based upon how far you're willing to take that particular thing.
Like we have a good friend, me and Chris do, who went into graphic design and stuff, and is actually doing okay. But that's because he found a niche. He found what most artists don't find, and that's a way to make money off of your art. Of course, through doing like design for games and design for people's videos and a clothing line, all three of those together, he makes a living. But
I managed to get a peripheral benefit out of my time in art class because I went to an art school, and whereas I didn't actually learn anything that I had even gone in there to learn. I was there for computer-generated graphics because I knew that movies like Jurassic Park were going to be made, and I wanted to be on those production teams. I wanted to be behind that. However, they didn't teach anything that they advertised that they would teach. It was a complete waste of time and a fantastic waste of money. But in the peripheral classes that I got, there were things like psychology or and art history and such that actually did relate heavily to my later criticisms of religion and such. So it was a balanced education, at least, that I got out of that in the periphery.
Yeah.
Right. So the people who own the majority of the wealth now, or as Justin says, technically wealth and money are separate. People who own the majority of the wealth, as far as monetary wealth in the United States, they keep their wealth by investing in the stock market. It is not. You can't make a public company, in order to gain interest, needs to be something that's attractive, something that people can emotionally attach themselves to. Unfortunately, universities, colleges, and everything like that, they don't make a profit. They take money. They use money, but they don't make an individual return. So there's no way to make money off of it. So that's why you can build a jet, not only because you have government dependence, and government dependence is a big love of industry. Whether you get subsidiaries or you get tax breaks or anything like that. Or your lobbyists are allowed to make bills which benefit your industry through Congress, and majority of the bills in Congress are written by lobbyists. So I mean, there's no money in education as far as they can see. I mean, of course, they send their kids to college. They make sure that their children get college education and everything like that, but it's not the same.
Well, people don't. Sorry, go ahead.
People are looking at their own private ends. I mean, it's like too many people in this country can't see past the next fiscal quarter. You know, they're not looking at the future generations. They're not looking at the world they're going to leave for their grandchildren. They're not looking at the fact that their children are going to have to take over the helm for themselves. You know, and so that you want your children to have a better understanding than you have. Unfortunately, in the United States, we don't want our children to understand things as well as we do. We want to be able to maintain control of them. This is a very disturbing trend that I see in the way that education is going down, and the way that, you know, political manipulation is affecting education and all of this. I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't understand the excuses that people use for this being the end times, so they don't have to worry about what they do with the environment, or what they do with all of our resources. They can just burn up everything and then reproduce as many kids as they want, because Jesus is going to come back and destroy everything any minute anyway. This is just a way of getting out of responsibility. It's a way of not acknowledging the future.
And the people who chase their own greed, the people who want to become wealthy and want to become wealthy and want to become wealthy, or the people who are already wealthy who want more wealth, they too have that short vision. They don't see that impact upon they may think of a future, but it's only about their legacy or their family name. It's those very personal things, but they don't think of that short term. What can I do to make sure that my kids really do have a future, really do have a system that they can rely upon?
What most of them don't realize.
Go ahead.
The point of this is their kids really don't have a good future if other people's kids don't also have a good future.
Right. But they don't see that, because again they're tied to that wealth, and they've been relying upon that wealth, and they've been able to rely upon that wealth, and so they're going to rely upon that wealth.
And of course, I mean, we don't want to generalize all wealthy people here. Like you said, like one of Kenny's biggest heroes is Warren Buffett, because Kenny likes the stock market and he likes all of that stuff. And you know, Warren Buffett is an interesting figure. There's other very wealthy people who are like that mindset, like Mark Zuckerberg, and like I said before, the creator of the 5-Hour Energy drink is another person who donates most of his wealth, or is currently donating most of his wealth. The issue is this kind of fractally happens in society, not just at the personal level where you look at other people's kids and you don't necessarily think they deserve an education, but of course your own kids do. This also happens whenever we go across borders. So you can look at it, it's a tribal mentality that you have between sports fans and their different teams. It's one that you have between countries. Like, so many people now are like, why don't the people in Mexico go to Mexico to get their jobs and make their country great? It's like, no, they're trying to come here so that they can get a certain amount of wealth. And a lot of them do go back because they do want the infrastructure of their country to go up. But the most beneficial thing that the U.S. could do to stop illegal immigration, as they call it, is to help Mexico become a very good country to be in. Honestly,
all we need to do to solve this problem with the Mexican border, you know how Trump wants to build the wall and all of this, all we needed to do is, if we were to legalize marijuana and possibly other drugs as well, we end the whole thing that the cartels were basing everything on. I mean, we've already demonstrated this with the few states that have legalized marijuana in this country, and I want to clarify that I'm not saying this because I want marijuana legalized for my own personal benefit. This is not a biased statement. I don't enjoy marijuana, so I don't care on that aspect. I wouldn't be doing it if it were legal because I just don't happen to enjoy it. Done. But the states that have legalized it have shown that they brought in a huge amount of revenue because of it. The users end up in a safer situation because they now have federally regulated product. And the state ends up making a huge boon in additional revenue. So much so that Oregon, for example, had a tax-free day to kind of like, give something back to the community. So if you had the entirety of the United States suddenly having federally regulated product where we suddenly make a massive amount of money over it, and now Mexican cartels don't have anything that they can. They're building these tunnels under our border for what? For nothing. They can't sell anything to us anymore. That's all been negated. So the problem with the immigration, the problem with the drug cartels, all of this is stuff we created, and we could end it by legalizing marijuana and ending this ridiculous war on drugs.
And the hell of it is what the cartel does to Mexico is essentially what a lot of the oil lobbyists do to the U.S. They screw up the ability of the people to make decisions that are best for their own rights concerning workers' rights and, human rights issues. So it pretty much like here's another great idea about it is as far as regulating it and making it legal here. I think that every psychotropic substance should be legalized, right? Every like marijuana, acid, shrooms, DMT, down the likes should be legalized because there's no potential for physical abuse, and the potential for physical harm is low. Now, the other drugs I think should be decriminalized to the aspect where we no longer look at addiction like it's a crime. It's much better to rehabilitate people than it is to hike your mandatory minimum sentences and make money off of them through the private prison industry, like we've seen. And I have a very close personal experience with that through my own parents. So it's, in that respect, a personal issue there. But this draws to point one of the 5 things that the collective evolution video was talking about, and that's how wealth inequality actually works, how the world economy actually works, and how so many people think there's like someone up there, a handful of people sitting around a table deciding who they're going to, fuck over. I don't think it works that way. I think it's unconscious, and that's the problem. Not that it's conscious, and therein lies some sort of weird plutocratic set of entities.
Well, you do have a plutocracy. I mean, this is clear. I mean, I don't believe in the Illuminati, but you do have some similar parallels at lower levels. I mean, you can look at the current election of the Democratic primaries and see some of that going on. As far as some of the other things you mentioned, let's see, GMOs. I don't know what the realization of the conspiracy was supposed to be on GMOs. I mean, GMOs are just like the technology that we were talking about. Technology does not always rise. There are stations where we have like the fighter jet that we made that's not as good as some of the things we've made before. We've had genetically modified food that has been hugely beneficial, like triticale, that was the Norman Borlaug's thing, the type of wheat that we can grow in drier climates that saved 1 billion people. We have advances like that. And then we have some things that have been done with corn that haven't been hugely advantageous. It leads the corn to where it needs to have pesticides and can no longer sustain without pesticides. So, I mean, some of the things that we've changed haven't always been improvements. But I don't see, the type of things that they're arguing for GMOs. They're talking about how these things are supposed to cause cancer and they're supposed to be poisonous, and some people have actually been saying that they've been injecting these foods with poison and all of this. It's completely absurd. We've modified almost every type of farmed product that we eat. We've modified many of them extensively. And sometimes we get to a point where we try to make another improvement and it's not an improvement, like seedless watermelon, for example. Seedless watermelon does not taste as good as seeded watermelon, but the seeded watermelon is a huge advantage over the previous watermelon because they're all genetically modified. There needs to be some accountability, I guess, in some of the modifications that are made, some kind of product control maybe. But I don't see any kind of conspiracy behind the GMOs at all. And the thing about chemtrails, that's the one that mystifies me completely, because if you have the 9/11 conspiracy that you have like 50% of the country, or more than 50% of the country, believes the country did that to ourselves. It's a completely plausible story on some levels. Now, some of the arguments that they've used have been disproved, and there's not a lot of credibility there, but remaining, you have that people don't trust their own government and are willing to believe that their government did that. That's kind of significant.
Yeah.
But so you might have some kind of credibility with the 9/11 conspiracy thing, and at least in the fact that so many people distrust their government so much. But when you have the thing about the chemtrails, that
boggles the mind.
That's utterly baseless. I mean, imagine if you wanted to have, just think about how absurd the 9/11 conspiracy thing is, where you have to have this cohesive conspiracy at all high levels of government so that all these people are completely in on it, right? And then nobody's going to leak any information. When the hell was there ever a conspiracy that was ever revealed that didn't have leaks in information? Yeah, I mean, Watergate, for example, there's a conspiracy that actually happened. It was actually exposed. But look at the way that it was done. They don't have perfect means of keeping everybody cohesive. So if you're talking about the chemtrails thing, then you're talking about somebody who invented this program with the invention of the jets so that these contrails were never contrails. They could never have been contrails, because if they were ever natural contrails, then they're still natural contrails now. So the only way to argue that they're not contrails, that they're actually this poison gas, is if they were always poison gas. So, so we have to have every organization, every aircraft, every airliner has to be in on it. The top levels of every, that means the mechanics, and that means that all of the engineers, all of the scientists, everywhere, every country, every company, that's beyond absurd.
Yeah.
And it's staggering how stupid our people can be when they buy into some of these things. Like I saw this video on YouTube where this woman had like a sprinkler running, and she's shining. She put the camera on it, like, what's wrong with our sprinkler? What's wrong with our water that it produces rainbows just like oil would? Stupid woman.
I know this one, and there's a very good channel on YouTube called Cool Hard Logic that has a series called The World of Batshit. And he goes through and debunks chemtrails, flat Earth stuff. He does an entire series on geocentrism, which is very wonderfully done, and mathematically proves, and that's the only time I like to use that word, but mathematically proves that they're wrong. The geocentrists.
I would love to get into an argument with somebody that tries to propose a flat Earth, and I can't get him to do it in a one-on-one real-time conversation like we're doing right now. I can't get any of the flat earther people to get on here and do this with me, and I think the reason why is because I've already crossed both oceans in the same month. Because I've been to 4 continents. I know how I've been to the Arctic Circle, and so I have some idea about this sphere that we live on and how the bullshit arguments don't always play. And if you write it out and give some time for somebody to come up with a bullshit excuse, maybe they can in some time. But in a real-time conversation, you can't, because all the arguments that I've ever heard have been so fantastically stupid. Like, what happens if you fly out of Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, and you're flying to China? Wouldn't you just have to go up in the air and China would come to you? Yes, arguments like that.
Oh my goodness.
They don't understand. I don't know if you've ever crossed an ocean on a plane, but going east to west takes a different amount of time than going west to east. And this has to do with the time zones. And it would be so amusing to me to get a flat earther on to have a show like this with them, but I don't think that they'll do it, because I think that they all know that they're full of bullshit, and this is just a hoax that they do for their own petty interests.
I mean, that's kind of one of the subjects I like to approach on this, because whenever that video was shared, of course, it was shared to a group that I'm a part of on Facebook called Freethinkers United. And I'm almost coming to despise the term free thinker, and I should never have to do that, because what I mean by free thinker is critical thinker. What everyone means by free thinker isn't that. It's the mind's so open that the brains fall out kind of thinkers.
If I may offer a definition, because the free thinker thing comes up a lot. I listen to Christians tell me that they are free thinkers. If you are required to believe that Christ died for your sins and you will go to hell if you don't believe that, and if you're not allowed to believe in evolution, for example, or you're not allowed to believe that some other, or in some henotheistic idea that other religions have some degree of truth to them too, then you have required beliefs and you have prohibited beliefs. That's what a belief system is. But in any case, if you adhere to a belief system, then you have required beliefs and prohibited beliefs, and are thus not free to believe whatever you want. True. That's what free thinking is. You don't have a belief system. That means you're open to have your mind changed by reasonable arguments.
That's a wonderful definition. I just wish that everybody who called themselves a free thinker understood that definition. I was arguing with a 9/11 truther, and it came around to the point where I realized, I could just throw out my standard line of argument and just change the terminology around for the rhetoric around for this type of argument, and it works the same way it does when I argue with creationists. He was talking about World Trade Center 7, the building that fell some distance away from the
across the street.
Yeah,
it fell because of debris from the first 2.
Yeah, and it was on fire and all of that good stuff. So he shares a video of Larry Silverstein, the owner, the leaseholder of the building, and he says the guy admits to in this video, pulling to say pull it. In other words, to have a controlled demolition. Blah 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 is what they're claiming. And I watched the video. It's about 32 seconds long. Mind you, I've already seen the full interview before and have seen someone debunk this particular claim, so I'm just waiting for it at this point. In the very first 3 seconds of the video, the guy says, I get a call from the fire department, and the fire chief tells me that the building's creaking, they've gotten everyone out of there, they don't think it's going to stand up to the stuff, and so Larry Silverstein goes ahead and says, pull it. In other words, get the people out of there and let it go.
Yeah.
That's and that's what he said in the very beginning of the video. So I literally quote the guy from the first few seconds of the video to this guy who shared the video not 3 seconds ago. And I was like, he got a call from the fire chief telling him this, and that's what he meant by this. And then I got called a liar. And I was like, So I went out of my way to find a very extensive series of videos debunking all of these claims and shared it with this guy. And I couldn't get him to watch any of these videos. I even gave him the timestamps whenever they go into debunking exactly what he's saying. And I'm like, look, I'm giving you, I can't personally sit here and type all this out, but I'm giving you someone who's actually sourced their material, debunking what you've said. And he said, oh, I don't have the time to do that. And I said, well, how do you have the time to go on the internet and spread around this crap? It's mind-boggling. It's almost as if he has buyer's remorse for this particular conspiracy that he believes. It's like at some point, after so many times of someone debunking you and proving where you've gone wrong in an argument, or getting rid of the establishment of your premises in an argument, you would think that if you're honest with yourself, that you'd stop doing it, that you would learn.
Now, I have a number of family members that are into very much the conspiracy series, and I say, well, look, eventually somebody's conspiracy is going to be right.
Yeah.
And the closest one probably to accurate is the wealth inequality thing, because we can see where all of this is being manipulated, and it is a small number of people in the upper elite area, whatever. But that's as close as I get to the Illuminati nonsense.
See, my point is with that, though, is I think the decisions they're making are causing the bad effects that we're seeing. It's just they don't care enough and aren't probably themselves informed enough on the decisions they're making to either understand or care about the impact of it.
Well, supposedly there was supposed to be a deliberate plan to devalue the American dollar, and I can see the people in the top 1/2 of 1% or whatever it was that Bernie Sanders always talks about. I can see them funneling their money to Panama so that they don't have to pay taxes on it, and it lending to this effect. But I don't see it as being deliberately orchestrated.
Well, see, the thing is that not one American was involved in Panama Papers. It was
there was not one American named in all in the Panama Papers.
There wasn't one American named in those Panama Papers.
Yes, there technically was.
No, well, no, I mean, it wasn't.
No, Jackie Chan is technically an American citizen. He's got dual citizenship, but he's American. Technically,
Yes.
There's a shell company listed in the Panama Papers that's directly linked to Bill and Hillary Clinton. There's actually two. But so yeah, there it may not be American names in the Panama paper, but there are shell companies that are definitely American money in the Panama Papers.
Before the Panama thing came out, we already knew that people were sheltering their money in Switzerland, or they were sheltering their money in the Cayman Islands.
You have Guam, you have Ireland. Now you have Ireland now. Actually, there's actually whole. Even funny enough, the areas are the unemployment is crazy. It's some 30% unemployment. The people are mostly on government services, but they have a very rich sector of financial sector in the area because people store their money overseas there because they get a tax break.
That may be why Pfizer moved to Ireland.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly why it happened, because that now is a tax haven. Despite the fact that it's not economically beneficial to the people in the area, they're literally still impoverished. Their employment is still harsh. They're mostly on government services, but people even tried opening up shops there, like in traditional cities, high-end expensive shops, and they eventually closed because the population wasn't matching the industry that's there. Well, not the industry, but the sector, the financial sector that's there.
Mhm.
So I mean, there is no benefit. But so the people who store their money there, they're not making sure that a little bit of that money goes to the public in some form. They're not providing employment. They're trying to benefit themselves. And it's just representative of that short-term thinking.
What I think a lot of people don't realize, though, is that the U.S. in many ways is a tax haven.
Yes. I mean, the amount of things the amount of claims that you can make on your taxes, the amount of I'm looking for the word, I can't find it. What's
Loopholes.
loopholes? There you go. The amount of loopholes that allow you to deduct from your taxes, especially for corporations. I mean, there might as well not be a tax system. There might as well just be a here's the shit I'm taking out of your worker's check. Here's how much you're getting. Here's how much we're keeping. That's basically what it should be, because that's what it is. I mean,
That's probably what it boils down to on the senatorial level.
right. I mean, you take from the productivity, the thing that actually creates the wealth, the monetary value, the thing that builds upon futures and allows children to get an education, allows sickness to be healed, allows etc.
Yeah.
Is the productivity of the workers and the ability for them to specialize and the ability for there to be a broad economy that benefits all.
Mhm.
But that's not happening with us. That happened at one point, very short-term period. Okay, it was right after World War II when everybody was returning.
It was under FDR, if I remember correctly.
Well, a little bit under FDR. It was also a little bit under Eisenhower, but it started drifting off because what happened is that you had taxes increasing. You had places around the world that were becoming more accessible that had cheaper labor. And so you saw the first major kind of exodus of industry from America because the fact that the owners were once again having that short-term mentality, thinking about themselves, saw the fact that a worker in China cost cents of less than the worker in the United States, and they didn't have all
Cents on
the
dollar.
since I'm thinking about back then, it was, I mean, they only made
It
about
was still
$3
cents
an
on
hour,
the dollar.
$3 $4 an hour. They didn't make a whole lot.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's why.
Yeah. Like even like when you say back then, like the minimum wage when it first started under it was FDR who enacted the workers' rights in that way. So what wasn't the original minimum wage $1.25, or was it a quarter?
I think it was $1 a quarter.
So I've seen plenty of charts on this that back up the fact that if we moved along inflation, we should be making $21.73 an hour right now as a living wage on average in the U.S. What companies don't realize, and that's part of that short-term vision. I think if you really want to blame anything, it's not necessarily the evil cabal, it's that short-term vision that people tend to have on achieving their own personal goals at the expense of others.
And it's because they're human. And,
Yeah.
and they're not logical. They're good at what they do.
But when you have a very well-regulated country, like some of the Scandinavian countries and whatnot, where they still have very broad financial sectors, yet the taxes are set up properly on that technical industry there for the people to benefit heavily from it. And the point of that, and the point of being competitive on the world stage, is that the two key factors in any stable economy are the health of the workers and the education of the workers. Without health, you can't work. Without an education, you're not going to be able to get a job that's competitive on the world stage.
Well, it's not necessarily that a job is competitive. It's that you're able to specialize. You're
Well, yeah,
able to go into an area where you can be the most productive. And this goes back to Adam Smith. Instead of a worker making an entire pin by themselves, and of course they couldn't make 10 pins in a day, you have a worker who makes the metal, who extracts the metal from the ground. Then you have the worker who takes that metal and they forge it. They take that raw material and they forge it into that metal. Then you have the worker who makes the hole in the pin. Then you have the ability for
I'm talking about a standard assembly there. Like I'm talking about.
I'm talking about specialization. The ability for people to do one specific job as a part of a whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we're
You
finding, though, in more competitive countries is it's not just one person doing one specific job. A specialized person is one person who does a host of specialized jobs. Like if you go to Germany or go to any other country where you'd think holding whatever phone you have that most of the money for that phone goes to like China or Japan or something like that. No, most of it goes to countries in Europe. And even though you're talking about most of these parts being made in China or other places, they're assembled, or the silicon parts of the phone, or the actual power grid of the phone is assembled in Germany or Switzerland, where people have the education to go and make sure that this piece of equipment is put together properly. And
right, but one person doesn't put together the whole chip.
No, well, one person will put together, several parts of the phone, and then
That's
the
what I'm
next
saying.
person
That
will put together.
specialization is
Yeah.
one person to specialize in one specific area. Education helps in that
Yeah.
because the fact that you have the ability, you have the ability not only to learn, but you have the ability to go into that specific area.
But education also does something else on the mass level, and it's part of the establishment of the individual rights. It's also part of the establishment of our understanding of our own government, so that we don't have issues like we're having right now in the primaries. It's also beneficial to our understanding that we are the stewards of this planet, and that we actually inherit it from our children, not the other way around. We pass it on to them, so we can't go around, shale and hydraulic fracturing the planet and causing all the world's waters to catch on fire like some sort of Greek apocalypse.
Right, because we'll eventually depend upon them.
Yeah.
As they depend upon us when they were the least able to fend for themselves, we will eventually depend upon them. And I think that's also something that a lot of people don't think about.
Well, it's something that could be very easily educated to, it's very, very easily taught to them. And I think you could simply play I think it was the 2011 version of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, with Danny DeVito as the Lorax himself. It's actually a very good film. I remember the first time I watched it, I actually cried. And I'm sitting here watching it with my daughter, who was about 2 years old at the time, and she's just laughing and dancing. And I'm like, there's a quote in the movie that comes from Dr. Seuss's book that says, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's ever going to get better. It's not." So, it comes down to that. But as far as going down the line of skepticism and stuff, I think we should shift over to the GMOs real quick. Okay. And the issue for this with me is that people are focusing on the wrong thing when it comes to Monsanto. It's not about this causing personal health effects. The issue that people are finding and farmers are finding with genetically modified organisms is the copyright laws that go along with seeds and things like that. And when you get cross-pollination going on with certain farmers who don't have the rights to certain seeds, they can be sued and have their farmland taken away for growing the wrong crops.
And this is what Bernie Sanders was going off on Monsanto about.
Yeah, and people get it confused, and I see a lot of Hillary supporters attacking him on being anti-science. It's like, no, there's another side to this, and has nothing to do with whether or not they're safe.
Apparently, like, Monsanto has people who go out there and they intimidate by force farmers if the farmers try to fight them.
Yeah,
they have teams of people who go out to meet these farmers and intimidate them.
It's not the science that's bad.
Yeah, no, it's the actions of the company they're trying to control that ability for themselves to make a profit.
But on the larger subject of skepticism and its nemesis, misinformation, or ignorance of things, whatever it may be, this entire video released from this Facebook group, which has a lot of followers, right, is representing itself as if it's scientifically accurate to some decent degree. And any person who's taken the time to understand critical thought and be a skeptic, and who's taken the time to go out of their way and see if the claims of apparent charlatans are true, knows that this crap is crap. But that's not who I'm worried about. I'm worried about the majority of people who haven't, and the effect that that'll have down the road. you know, as in most other things we're talking about, the effect that happens down the road whenever you have issues like this is possibly us not investing in certain technologies that could save potentially all of us down the road. So, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to have to let you guys go. I have some other projects I got to jump on.
All
So I'm
right.
going to bow out. Thank you
You're
guys for
always
having me
welcome.
on.
Good night, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for getting him on, Justin. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it was pretty. He was pretty interesting.
He's a really
Yeah.
cool guy. Like, I like him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't, Chris, you should check out his channel and watch the videos. They're definitely worth watching.
I'll watch him when I get a chance.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I'm just like barely awake.
What'd you do today?
Worked all day.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. I was stupid. Part of my transformation I'm doing throughout this year. First, I got a job. Now I have a gym membership, so now I'm starting to take care of myself. And I did squats on a work day, but I haven't done squats since I was in high school. My right leg, thick as a tree trunk. I mean, there was a car that was pulling up, and I was like, okay, I gotta run so this person can get ahead of me. So it's like, they're not waiting on me. My body was like, okay, I'm gonna run. My legs were like, the fuck you aren't.
Yeah.
I wobbled like a penguin instead of like my knees would not bend. They were like, nuh-uh, not happening, bro. So yeah, I learned an important lesson.
Something interesting that Aron was saying earlier concerning the UFO thing, how it could also be time travelers from the future.
Yeah.
You know, after playing, it wasn't just before that. I understood for a long time, even since I was young, that space is very, very big. Like, the universe is a very large place compared to us. So, like, I go through and I play games like the Kerbal Space Program and Universe Sandbox that have a one-to-one ratio of space, like actually demonstrating the amount of space between things and the differences in the size of objects. I actually think it would be more likely that UFOs would be time travelers than it would be extraterrestrials. I'm not saying it's something that's likely, but I'm saying it's more likely than the other option.
It's odd, but I wouldn't want it to be time travelers.
Have I told you?
Because if it was time travelers, I would have had a conversation with myself by now. I know it. That would have been something I would have done.
Yeah.
But that means that since I haven't had a conversation with myself yet, that everything that I wanted to do, I failed at. So I wouldn't want it to be time travelers because that means I didn't accomplish anything I wanted to.
Well, I mean, this assumes like a linear time path and all kinds of other stuff too. Like you know, like okay, whenever you're talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation and how that time path works, like whenever they go through time and do different stuff, especially that episode whenever a Q takes Picard back through his life and changes different aspects of it, and eventually Picard chooses to die in the end anyways, even though he's brought back by Q because Q
gets stabbed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's an example of a nonlinear time scale, like where different things can happen, and it doesn't necessarily affect that same time period that you're talking about because apparently it takes place on a different fourth dimensional plane, or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Quantum physics, basically.
And like
Quantum woo.
I keep meaning to tell you guys this story that I had. Down here, there's a lot of military people or presence because the base is close by, and there's a lot of veterans that go and shop around the city. And down here in Macon, and I went to this restaurant. It's called the Rookery. It's a really good restaurant. And we ate there one day, and then this older guy and 2 other people were with him, and they sat down behind us, and we were just enjoying lunch, and I overheard from behind me they were talking about something I couldn't really hear, but what really caught my attention was that he said something about the Roswell incident was not like a UFO deal thing. It was more of it was actually time travelers that
Well, that sounds really likely.
yeah that I guess it was just a bad experiment or something like that.
Were they trying to time travel and failed?
That's what it seemed like he was saying, but like I said,
Sounds
it's
like
kind of like I kind of overheard it. I wasn't really like I couldn't really hear the whole conversation, but just a little piece because he was an older veteran, and he said he had lots of clearance. That's what I heard too.
See,
So-
like that I always hear stuff like that, but I also think to myself, the military people I've known in life, that if they really had that kind of clearance and stuff, don't really talk about it.
Yeah, no.
I think it was because he wasn't as. It was such a long time ago that. Well, it was a long time ago, but he was also like a child, like that heard it from.
Yeah. So his military
Yeah,
credentials at that point almost don't mean anything.
Yeah.
But
I always hate like
but I think he has access to that information, and then he just told his close family member or friend or something, because he really was like he really seemed like somebody that used to be important in the military.
How?
I don't
Well,
know.
like I had a criminal justice teacher who was a special agent in the DoD for 25 years, and was like, but he literally would. People would ask him about certain things, and he would be like, I can't talk about that. And so I know that there's things that we obviously don't know. However, what I think people claim about the things that we don't know is ridiculous, and I also think it's ridiculous that most of the time when people make claims about things that nobody knows except for the people who do know.
Yeah.
Those claims they make, they require you to disprove them in order for them to accept your skepticism. And I'm like, it's not my job to disprove this. You're the one making this baseless claim because nobody knows what's really going on with this, and then claiming you have evidence that doesn't point to anything you say it does. It's just like, ugh.
But that's the only that was the first time I heard something that made sense from that whole incident. Either it was an experiment that went wrong that they were trying to do, or it was, which I believe that's what it was, or it was time travelers.
Well, I mean, I've seen pictures of the supposed wreckage from Roswell, and it looks like the composition of a weather balloon to me. I mean, it just does.
I do think they covered. Well, I know they definitely covered something up, but I don't think it was like aliens or anything like that.
What they probably like. Here's what I think. Right, this is a while back, and let's just assume that if the government's capable of sinking 1 trillion dollars into a messed up jet, that they could also sink money in the past when we had less transparency, or less ability to have transparency, into even stupider shit. So let's just assume that maybe they were trying to time travel. Maybe they sent a guy way up near outer space in a weather balloon without realizing what being too high up like that would actually do to you in some degree. And they tried to take the precautions they thought they could take, and then the guy gets up there and just like freezes to death and then falls to the ground, and what they were trying to do though is see if he could jump at a certain velocity and go back in time by traveling against the rotation of the Earth or some really dumb crap like that, like you saw in Superman 4.
Yeah, like you don't really know what they were doing. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But I
There's
do
only one
think
way we'll find out.
something definitely happened there, and it was covered up, but I don't think it was something insanely out of the ordinary. It
Well,
was definitely
the records we have are
Yeah.
so heavily redacted that you just fill in the blank. It's like a Mad Lib. I mean, you could fill it in with whatever you want and weave together whatever story you like. You have the Freedom of Information Act. That don't mean crap whenever the original documents have big black blotches all over them.
yeah.
So,
That's
Yeah.
funny as shit. That's
way to
funny as
go,
shit.
government.
Give us your documents. Give us your documents.
Well,
Give
it
us
was
the
also-
information, and then it's all blacked the fuck out. It's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is this?
It was also easier to hide things like that because it's not like today everybody has a camera or a drone or
Well, that's what I always thought was funny
Yeah.
about Big Brother, right? People are always like, "Oh, more cameras and stuff. They're just gonna spy on you," and blah blah blah. And meanwhile,
No, it's actually going to expose a
Yeah.
lot of secrets, and it's already have.
like,
According to Snowden,
Even going back to the Watergate thing, just because there was a technology of a
For a tape
recording,
recorder.
a tape recorder that made something leak. Now that there's more ways of seeing things instantly, keeping secrets is going to be close to impossible.
yeah,
according to Snowden, there is just a very large database just for dick pics.
really no.
Yes. The government does actually, in fact, they intercept and keep, according to Snowden, certain agencies. They can access your dick pics.
Huh. Makes me glad I've never done one.
You should.
I mean,
Liar.
I haven't.
Liar.
I haven't though.
Liar.
How?
Damn it! When he takes it out, there's a reason.
I just know.
Actually, no. He's right.
Dustin.
I didn't send it to anyone except for my wife, and she was mad at me for it. So.
Oh, poor girl. So sorry about that, man.
Like, I don't care. Someone could hack stuff and blah blah blah. And I was like, why?
Like, if you want to see it, go ahead.
It's like no, but why? No, like why though? Like who wants to know? Who cares enough about me? Like what assets do I have that makes me an attractive target for a hacker?
Yeah, apparently you can make a good dick pic. Maybe you can make a good photographer. You never know.
They're going to copy and paste it all over the middle school's girls' bathroom.
What?
That'd be fucked up.
That would be messed up. But no, I don't see that happening. Like,
What would
I'm
fuck
sorry.
up?
I used to go to like 4chan all the time, right?
Yeah. I remember
and
you asked me to join it once.
Oh yeah, you don't have to join it. It's like you're
We'll go there,
automatically
check it out.
joined whenever you go into an anonymous area. Your anonymous number, or whatever. But that's the good old days of that, right? And I realized it hasn't changed all that much. But the good old days of that were such that you would encounter all kinds of crazy conspiracy crap all the time. Like, I'm talking crazy. I'm like, you think you know crazy? But then you listen to like some actual racist talk about their theory about people, and then they go down the line, and it gets really nuts because people on those boards, on those Yotsuba boards and stuff, feel free to say whatever they think because nobody's going to know who it is. And that was a wonderful thing because it exposed me to just how dumb people could be, to where I wasn't as dumbfounded whenever I saw how dumb people would be on actual social media wherever people could tell who you are, up until recently. And here very recently, people have started being dumber than I remember on 4chan. And I don't know why. I don't know what's happened.
It's because they're younger.
Maybe it wasn't because you didn't realize how dumb they were because you hadn't completely you didn't know as much as you do today.
Yeah, it's because
your exposure to just how fucking stupid they were. You just now that you think back, you can fully understand just how fucking stupid they were. But back then, in your eyes, you were still a lot smarter than them. You were still a lot more logical, but
No,
you weren't as advanced as you are today.
I'll tell you when it happened, right? And I think my explanation of why I think this happened might be a little more cogent.
Okay.
Okay. It happened the moment I saw somebody's tweet saying, "What's Obama's last name?" Does anybody know Obama's last name? All right. So that got me.
Damn, Chris.
That's more of a smear than you realize. But no, like no. That moment was whenever I was like, it didn't have to do with anything else than the fact that this person had not been exposed, to apparently anything, and it dumbfounded me. But they weren't the only one asking the question. Apparently, somebody went and compiled everyone who'd asked this question, and it was like, damn, there are quite a few people out there who don't realize that Obama's last name is Obama.
That's because there's a lot of people now, especially, they're just taking pictures and putting it on Instagram and Facebook and
here's
sharing
my
the
point.
videos and stuff. And
I actually think most people are actually
to things in life that they think it's fucking like not worth their time to spend and learn about something. Then,
but my point is, and the reason I think I'm wrong in thinking that what's happened or asking what happened is because I think the majority of people now are actually smarter. But here's the difference: back in the old days of 4chan, back before social media has become as large as it is now, you didn't, almost to the point that even though your identity's out there, there's a sense of anonymity because it's so big. You had these Yotsuba pages where people were saying whatever they want, and you got a view of a small fraction of people who had access to that. So you're getting a small view. I got a small view of some dumb people. But then imagine how dumb the people were back then who weren't on the Yotsuba pages or, posting anonymously or didn't even know about that. How dumb were they? What dumb things were they thinking or saying? So maybe we've missed out. Maybe if we went back and somehow could establish social media in the 20s, we would have seen some really crazy shit.
We would have seen some fucked up shit.
I think our memes would be a little bit more G-rated.
Now.
I think our memes and our smiley faces would be a little more G-rated. You probably wouldn't have the grapefruit or the OK sign with a finger going inside of it. You wouldn't have any of that stuff. I think it would be a little more.
What I'm talking about here is ignorance in general, like how many people remain ignorant about common facts, just basic things everyone should know, or everyone with an intellect who's taken the time to go and figure some things out. Yeah. Everything that you think you should know, like that, there's planets and stuff in the solar system that go around the sun. And you know their names, or basic stuff like what state is this? Where is this state at in the United States? Where is the United States located geographically? Basic questions that people get wrong, that I hear and see people get wrong. But I also realize that they're taking a sample, and they've probably edited out everyone who answered it right to make it seem like people are dumb. And I don't think that many people are dumb. I just think that the dumb people are put in your face more to where it seems like there's more of them. Just like I think that the assholes out there, the people who are really discriminatory and stuff, are not that large in number, but the media puts them in your face to where it seems like there's more of them. Like I've said many times before, I think 30% of the population is probably assholes. But they seem like much
a little
more.
bit higher than that.
Yeah, but it seems like it's more because they're louder.
I say that from experience, just from being out and actually talking to people.
Well, no, like I was a telemarketer, dude. I called people. There's a difference between like what I mean by asshole and what you mean by asshole too. Like there's mean people out there who are generally informed and educated, right? They're still assholes. But what I mean by asshole in this instance is mean, bigoted people who don't know anything. like about anything that matters or anything that would help them cohese with the rest of society and have any norm of what we would call social. What's the word? I'm looking for a word here. It's like an understanding that this person's also human, like a humanist perspective, but
innate.
No, it's like I lost my place.
Oh, dude, just think. Oddly enough, I have the same problem when I'm catching a buzz. Is I can't. One word can offset an entire thing I had planned in my head to say.
Yeah, it happens to me too. What I hate is whenever I've got something planned to say and I'll get part the way through saying it and then the wrong words start coming out, like words that I didn't think of at all, start coming out of my mouth, and then I'm like, what was I even going to say? And I'm trying to still tie it together, and I'm like, stop saying words because the words you're saying are not right.
Yeah, it's like you just want to tell yourself that, okay, stop it, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up.
You're making yourself look bad, Justin. Stop it.
You look like an idiot.
Yeah, just yelling into your head, yelling in your head, going, just tell yourself, shut the hell up.
Yeah, but no, the what exactly were we just talking about?
We were talking about why people are so okay with being ignorant.
Okay, why people are so
because
okay.
they just
And you were kind of amazed.
They feel that
you did point out that
that's
today it
not
seems a lot better.
Those issues aren't worth their time.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is there's far less ignorance to go around today, and there's far less of an excuse to be ignorant. But the ignorance that does still exist sometimes still really amazes me. Because I assume, through colloquium of everyone I know knowing something, that everyone that they know also knows that, down the line. But that's not the case. Like when someone comes up and, starts going off about the Pluto thing, right? This is a pet peeve of mine where like, how can they just up and not make it a planet no mo and stuff like that.
It's a fucking planet, alright? It's a goddamn planet. I don't give a shit what anyone fucking says. It's a goddamn planet, alright?
It's a dwarf planet.
I didn't memorize it for nothing, damn it.
It's a dwarf planet, and there are hundreds of other ones out there close to its size or larger. It's not special in any way other than the fact that
it's special to me. I had to memorize it. It's special to me.
We just.
I'll live there. I'll live there to make it a point. I'll just say I'll live there, and I'll claim it's a planet. I'll put a sign in my front yard and everything.
Something cool.
Like most people don't get. The dwarf planet has the word planet in it, so that you can still say, it's a planet, but it's classified as a dwarf planet because even though we discovered it, we also discovered a bunch of other ones just like it.
Right. I was being somewhat facetious, but I did not like all of a sudden finding out that Pluto wasn't a planet. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, at first, I was like, what is this? And then I read about it and I was like, oh, that's where most people get hinged up. They see a headline, and I that is another thing that gets to me. And
it just surprised me.
Probably one of the reasons why I get depressed when I go on Facebook, even though I go on Facebook all the time, like because it's some sort of addiction. Headline things that come through, the way they're worded, and the fact that you have to click them to see what they're really saying. I'm just like.
And then like there's only like one thing on the first page, and there's a shit ton of ads, and it says, to continue, click to the next page.
That's annoying, but the actual
it's still
blog
filled with ads, and every page is just more ad revenue.
The actual reports you get from people a lot of the time, from like Huffington Post and Washington Post and stuff, are like they say something true, they state a fact here in the very beginning or midway down. Some of them are better, obviously. Some people write better and they have more facts and it's tied together well and they make a cogent case. But some of them are just literally, here's a fact, and then I'm going to spin this fact for the next, 4 pages. that's how those tend to go. And like you see the like only articles I've ever seen against Bernie that try to form anything against him rely on bad information that tries to spin another narrative than what actually happened. Like with the whole nuclear waste thing.
Yeah.
That like the nuclear, whenever he came into that position, the nuclear waste was already there. Something had to be done with it. And then
Right.
whenever it was handed over, it had nothing to do with him anymore. It had to do with that particular agency.
No, he doesn't deal with it, and you wouldn't. He doesn't. He does. He's not. He wasn't even an authority figure that could have even decided anything on it, really. The amount of regulation involved with nuclear waste. I mean, you can't just blame one person. It's insane. You can't just say it's one person's decision. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
You literally, in order to find a place, in order to store nuclear waste, it's crazy. You have to find a place that's been geologically undisturbed for hundreds of thousands of years. No earthquakes, no tectonic plate movements. It stayed exactly the same. And you have huge blocks in China that are that way, and you have a few blocks in other places like Australia that's that way, but it's rare. Okay, and so you can't say that anyone's decisions or anyone's part in any role play a specific part in where that chemical waste ended up. You only have places. You only have a few places you can actually put it. You can't just bury it in the ground anywhere you want. It doesn't work that way.
And another article I've seen floating around claims
right back.
all right,
Okay.
Bernie Sanders is siphoning money from his campaign to his wife and other family members, right? But then you go in and you actually read it, and then you go and you fact check it, and you realize that yes, some people that are working in his campaign are family members, like his daughter and his wife. But you look at how much they're getting paid, and it's not that much. It's like a standard salary for someone who's working a whole year. Not much more than I would get paid.
Right. I mean, and it's not like, I mean, you saw how much it was. I remember it was in the 2008 elections when Obama was first being elected, he was going against John McCain. Sarah Palin had been chosen by John McCain to be his running mate because of the fact that it seemed like she was more in tune with the majority of Americans. She was from a small town in Alaska. She was mayor. She wasn't like John McCain. She wasn't from monetary wealth or anything like that. But one of the things that came out against her eventually was the fact that her family and herself were literally getting wardrobes that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was just piece after piece after piece, and it was like they were spending for just basic wardrobe for her just to go out there in public. They were spending an amount of money that a whole family could feed themselves on for a month. And Sarah Palin eventually came out against it. I mean, so it's been far worse in the past. I mean, you have a lot of campaigns that will keep some of that money in the end if they don't end up spending it.
Yeah.
And so paying someone a small salary because they work a regular day schedule, no, that's not an issue.
No, and they're like, oh, but it comes from the campaign fund. So that's what the campaign fund is for, to have people working on the campaign who, can go and do the things necessary to get the word out to get people off their butts to vote.
Right. Now, the one question would be is if other people are making the same amount of money. The same people who are working for him, who are not his family, are making at least the same amount of money.
I believe he pays them around $15 an hour, his staffers and people like that.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's what he does because that's what he preaches, so...
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's good because then at that point you have a separate argument. You have favoritism, or
I mean, I saw a
like
Hillary Clinton supporter claiming that Bernie's not good with money because in the states that he's lost to Hillary, he spent a lot more money than her from the campaign fund. But I think that's a disingenuous statement considering the opposition he's facing with the DNC. And how much more money he has to spend in order to be able to do these things compared to them the DNC who pretty much smooths up the deals for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And it's a little different too because Hillary Clinton made 20 some odd $7 million last year. You know,
Yeah, I mean, she's clearly not the same as Bernie Sanders.
no, it's not. The thing is the stuff that they dredge up. If Bernie Sanders was running against Bernie Sanders himself, but hadn't done those other things, then they might have a point for those little grievances that they have, right?
Yeah, but you couldn't even call that a lesser evil fight. You would be like, okay, who do I choose? It would be a
Yeah.
matter of literal. It would have to be. It would be an emotional decision at that point. Who do you like more, Bernie Sanders A or Bernie Sanders B? You couldn't. I mean, it would be such a hard choice. He would literally split the party, fighting himself.
Yeah, but the point is like it's not that hard of a choice, especially concerning to me, I know most people don't think this way. Your vote is not something to be given due to bandwagon appeal.
Right.
It's not supposed to be given because everybody else you think is voting for this person. You and everyone else too should vote off of principle and reason. It comes down to those two things. If you use principles to determine like your political values, whether you come from a conservative side or a liberal side, most of the time you'll arrive somewhere left of center. you know. So you're going to come into this political discussion and basically you have everyone working against you in some fashion. The difference is it's this generation now. It's this generation and the people in their 30s and whatnot, and some people above that, who are taking a look at the two-party system and are kind of fed up with it.
Understandably so. I mean, how many countries around the world, how many of our own allies have different representative parties? And they're not restricted to two. In Canada, they're not restricted to two.
Well, we're not restricted to two here either, but the laws concerning things are concerning how the primaries and all that crap is set up, and the laws concerning, the bylaws concerning how things work within the Democratic Party and the Republican Party pretty much scoop up any funding for campaign stuff that goes on in this country, and that's why we need to move towards public funding, because when you move towards public funding, people are going to fund the candidate they believe that has their best interest at heart.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's restrictions kind of against people they're against multiple parties running, because in the end you have to register as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent.
Yeah, and like there's the Green Party, and there's technically a Socialist Party in the U.S.
But you can't register as a voter of them.
No, but you can still vote for them.
Yeah,
but there's a difference in how that works as far as how they count your vote, and how things work in districts and all of that other good stuff, and how primaries work. And the sad thing about the Democratic elite right now on the DNC side of things, or whatever side of the left you want to call that, I call it more of the neoliberal side, is that you have groups of people who look at the youth who are registered mostly as independent and stuff and say, well, you can't just come in and take over our party and stuff, whenever the Democratic Party has been operating as the liberal faction and the only type of party that could actually get anything done. So we're being attacked as the youth and other people who support Bernie in this case, who has been independent for so long, for having someone try and come into the Democratic Party, which they view as their own, to get something done. But what they don't realize is that the Democratic Party is the only party that we could get into in any way to actually get anything done.
Yeah.
So what are you supposed to do? I mean, because we've already seen what happens if we try and vote third party. We split the vote for the people who even slightly agree with us, and we end up losing.
You see that thing that becomes a preset thing. That's something that's an scapegoat that can be constantly relied upon.
Yes, but here's
there has to be a way to defeat that. Once you defeat that, then people can't use that anymore. That's what you have to do.
There's a reason why it actually defeats itself, and we're seeing it this time around. There's a reason why I still think that even if Bernie didn't get the nomination at all, and he ran third party with someone like Jill Stein, you could probably actually win the presidency and totally have a huge paradigm shift, because the independent voting bloc, even though it doesn't, all of them don't lean to the left, most of them do. So you would have
For
people,
moderates.
yeah. Well, I mean, the most of the independent party is progressive. So you've got 45% of the vote right there, not including all the Democrats who also belong to the progressive title. So if you have all of these people unite in voting for a candidate, then they will take greater number than both the Democratic and Republican side and be their own party, which I would hope would be the Progressive Party. But you won't hear that in the media. That's not the narrative that people that apparently the people want to have pushed, because it'll cost everybody in some respect to change this country. But the only people who are okay with the status quo are the people who aren't affected by it. So,
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. They're very few, but even some of those people who aren't affected by it, they vote Democratic.
yeah, don't get me wrong. That's the whole point. And the problem with the two-party system is you have Democrats that want to get stuff done but can't, because they're told by other Democrats that they can't get that stuff done because those Democrats are in somebody's pocket, and they're told that they can't get it done because they could never outbeat the Republican opposition to get any of that done in any allotted period of time because of obstructionism, right? So from that point, you kind of have a system set up to fail to repeat a status quo that only works for some of the people. And it's been doing that for the past 30 years in one way or another, whether it's from the Republican side or the Democratic side. Right. The legislation, no matter what it does, no matter what ground it tries to take for the American people, for the United States citizenship, no matter what ground it tries to take, it won't take certain ground, because that certain ground is apparently somebody else's and not taxable, not, it's not something that they took from society. It's something that they made themselves.
Right. They don't have to contribute to the collective.
Yeah, tell him, Justin.
Yeah, I'm sticking it to the man.
Sticking it to the man.
So that's just what gets me about this whole.
Right now.
What gets me about this whole primary, though, is people don't understand that right now, even with what happened in New York, which is a huge. Like, I don't understand why it's not the whole voter fraud thing is not being taken more seriously.
Well, because here's the other thing that I found. I mean, if you had, in 2008 when Obama was being elected, in that election you had cries from on the right as loud as the cries are now that election fraud was happening. John McCain won. He should have won. Okay, and they said that election fraud happened. It was the unanimous voice of the Democratic Party that said election fraud is rare. It never happens. It does not happen. There's no record. They deny it completely.
And then the Republican Party goes and makes voter ID laws, which substantially start to screw.
Only in a few states. And not all of them. Not all of them even survived.
Yeah.
So
but they clearly affected the Democratic Party.
So now you have the Democratic Party who once said, "Hey, this stuff rarely happens. It does not happen." Now you have them saying, "Well, now it's happening." So it seems kind of. I'm not saying that this is my argument. I'm saying, but it seems from the outside that it could be someone could make the argument in the future that they're using it as a way to kind of keep their choice candidate alive, kind of keep that desperation.
Well, if anything shouldn't have been assigned to that, and it wasn't, if anything wasn't the key understanding for me, and seeing that this was clearly corrupt from the beginning on the Democratic side, and I'm sure it's corrupt on the Republican side as well, it's how the superdelegates automatically sat down where they did from the beginning, really. It's like all of these extra numbers that are hoisted up on Google to give a false sense until you click the little drop-down link and see the real delegate count.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is just deceptive in its nature, whether it's intentional or not. It's for anyone to go look at that, regardless of whether Hillary is qualified, regardless of whether or not she's ever done anything illegal or anything ethically reprehensible that anyone can detect. you can take a clear look at the candidates and take a clear look at how they're being represented in the media and how they are being treated by the establishment that already exists, and then take a look at their rhetoric and come to a somewhat honest conclusion that maybe, just maybe, they have a little bit of a hand in making sure things swing their way. Whether it's giving all the superdelegates over to someone, or whether it's stripping 126,000 people off of the freaking voter registration base, like apparently one Republican woman did. Now, whether or not it's the DNC doing this, they're still taking advantage of the fact. You don't hear any Hillary people crying out that their votes weren't counted. No, because it's the independents who are switching over, who are finding out that their signatures have been forged, and that they were, or just plain taken out of the registration altogether, to where they couldn't vote. You know, when they have proof otherwise that they were registered, but couldn't, and then have to fill out an affidavit ballot, and then that causes their vote not really to count towards what the delegates decide. Even though sometimes in states after the final tally comes up, Bernie has more in some cases and is supposed to get shifted a certain amount of points, he only gets shifted a little less than that. Or you have a state like Wyoming where Bernie won in a landslide and still didn't receive the majority of the delegates because of the superdelegates, right?
Right.
So this is just prime examples of very blatant, overt, what any other country would call corruption. But here in the U.S., it's standard practice.
Well, it's standard practice, but it wasn't standard practice in 2008. I mean,
no, it was standard. It's been standard practice in some regard, not with all the voter ID laws and not with the way that they're doing that now, but
well, again, those
for the
voter
past
ID
30
only happened in
years.
2 states.
Well, yeah, but for the past 30 years, because of the two-party system and the way that the delegate structure is set up and the way that the electoral college is set up, I mean, and there's examples of this in other times throughout our country's history, where it's not the people's voice being represented anymore, in any meaningful stretch of the word. It's when you hear a candidate come out saying that they'll give a voice to people who don't want fracking done in their neighborhoods, versus a candidate who says that he wants to ban fracking outright. You have one of these candidates who say they're going to impose heavy regulations, but yet you find out that they traveled throughout the world to talk to different people in different areas where there was natural gas resources to start doing hydraulic fracturing of the crust to get the natural gas. So it's just like, what? How is anyone with a brain who knows this going to still vote for this person? And it comes down to, and in the many people I've talked to, it's an example of buyer's remorse, or it's an example of ignorance where they just didn't know. Because I've met plenty of people who at one point supported Hillary, who I've talked to enough that they now are like, no, I'm supporting Bernie. And the sad part is I've talked to someone who I've convinced who already voted for Hillary, and that made them feel bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, so knowing that, what is your view of a system that is based upon purely popular vote? Because I mean, I've asked that. I was like, okay, so what if we could just get rid of the superdelegates? What if we get rid of those delegate things? What if we just go by popular vote?
We don't need superdelegates. Actually, the Democratic Party has superdelegates, and they've only had them since the 60s, I believe, and the whole point of them is to stop grassroots movements in the Democratic Party.
So you're basically, they're useless in your view.
Yeah, superdelegates are. Delegates, no. I think what has to happen, and it's through public funding of campaigns, is that you get delegates that aren't bought. And I'm sorry, but it seems in some cases that they are.
Can you demonstratively prove that?
Can I demonstrably prove that, and when I say delegates, I'm going to reference superdelegate here.
Well, what do you have any delegates? Do you have any delegates as well?
Just regular delegates? Not to my knowledge yet.
Okay.
I'm just saying this is a likelihood.
Okay.
But with a superdelegate, though, there's an example of one, and I believe I shared it on Facebook.
You shared a couple of them.
But I shared some that switched their vote to Bernie, and
Oh, okay.
those are cool people. And I've also shared. Let's see. Okay. Lady. Okay, let's go.
As I'm scrolling past the Putin thing in the land of comedies, you definitely have a
I can't
diverse
find.
page, Justin.
It's possible to find who I'm talking about, but it's a
You
super
posted it
delegate.
some time ago.
Yeah, it was a super delegate from New York. It's some lady who's technically on the payroll of Goldman Sachs. No, she's a lobbyist, right? Sorry, a lobbyist. That's what she is for, I believe, Goldman Sachs.
You have
And
this guy right here. Is Rangall McTaylor? Taylor? Taylor?
yeah.
You have that's the guy I see right here.
But no, it's just what people don't seem to understand is like when you've got the DNC, right? And the chairperson of the DNC is Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the campaign, I think, manager for Hillary Clinton back in 2008, right? So you have her in the DNC, and then you have Goldman Sachs giving money to Hillary Clinton, and you also have a superdelegate who is a lobbyist for Goldman Sachs. So, I mean, when all of those things are the way they are, why does this not seem like there's no corruption there to people who apparently think there's not any corruption going on? I mean, how is that even possible?
I mean, yeah, I mean that's true. Thing is that a lot of times, it's especially today, it's really easy to fall for any Facebook story. It's really easy to go, oh well, this photograph is faked. This article is written by somebody who supports this exclusively, and they're trying to, or like you even posted this thing where you had apparently a Hillary super PAC had hired trolls on the internet to
that
correct
later
Bernie.
came out to be not mostly true, but there's a grain of truth to it.
What's the grain of truth?
Yeah, the grain of truth to the grain of truth to that story is that there is a group of trolls on the subreddit and stuff in Reddit itself that literally are just going out and trolling for the sake of Hillary Clinton, but it's unclear as to whether they're actually paid. Yeah.
Well, payment can be very easy to hide. I mean,
Well, the thing is they make these claims,
cash
bro.
will do it.
They make these claims, you debunk their claims, and they go with the same line of argument, and this line of argument is set up to where they'll make a claim about Bernie, you debunk the claim about Bernie, they'll make another claim which has some truth to it or whatever, and try and claim that, oh, he's just an ideologue, he can't get anything done, and go through the natural realm of different responses people have to him as a candidate. And then whenever you expose all of that and do all of that, they either start over or insult you. And that's just a clear troll. But nobody knows why exactly they're doing it, unless it's just to get a rise out of people that they think that they know more than.
Well, I mean, I've given the argument that looking at as the system is now, that Bernie wouldn't be able to get a whole lot done in the Congress that currently exists.
But there's the re-election, or not the re-election. There's the elections.
Right. And that was your argument, and then my argument was, well, re-elections haven't always gone the people's way. Obama was supposed to get Democrats in both terms. He didn't. He only got it in half of his one term.
Yeah, it's because of low voter turnout and how the districts were set up.
Right. So it's hard because you have this huge increase in young voter turnout for Obama, and then it just completely went away in the midterm elections, and that was hard to predict because it was predicted then as well that those young voters that turned out in such huge numbers would once again become activists and they'd once again transfer their vote into the midterm elections. They didn't. So, but I mean, obviously, I'm not a troll because I don't, I don't do the things you mentioned or
Yeah.
anything like that. So I mean, I've made the argument as well. I guess it just depends on where you take the argument. I guess.
Well, I mean, for me though, people act like it's something impossible to do to, in a 4-year term, get universal health care and universal education.
Well, you can get it, but it wouldn't be effective in that term. I mean, it would be something like the ACH, which I think was finally voted on in 2012, but it didn't really start until 2014.
Yeah.
So it would be something like that, like the next president, if Bernie Sanders didn't win re-election, I mean, if he passed universal health care and he passed his initiatives, obviously, I mean, shit, people would be ultimately fucking stupid if they didn't re-elect him. If people didn't re-elect him, Justin, I think it would be okay for you to move to Canada. I would understand it. I would completely support. I'd help you look for a place. I would understand it. But if he didn't, but I mean,
Well, I mean, I don't think he would have to necessarily win the re-election. I think someone.
if he got it done the first time, ideally he'd be the second. Is anybody? Elizabeth Warren has already completely said she's done. She is not running. She's not running for office. She's not accepting a vice presidency. She's gonna stick to who she is now because she thinks that's the most effective path for her.
We could have somebody like Jill Stein come onto the scene, though.
Well, yeah, Jill Stein. Yeah, but Jill Stein does not have an Elizabeth Warren appeal. I mean, as far as like her personality isn't the same. Elizabeth Warren, she digs in there, and she's from New York. Damn it.
But
Jill Stein's from California.
Yeah, if Elizabeth Warren came out in support of Jill Stein,
Bernie. Well, yes.
Yeah,
or Bernie Sanders, or.
Yeah, well, Elizabeth Warren has kind of hinted towards Bernie Sanders, but hasn't came out with a public thing.
Because of her position, though, I can understand she can't really hint. We would all like to believe that that our jobs, even though they say that we have a right to participate in the voting election, that it doesn't have any effect on our jobs. It obviously is not true. It does. It can, and especially if the person who's in charge of you is very emotionally attached to their politics.
Yeah.
It can
I've witnessed that before.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Warren is in that same position.
Yeah.
Especially now.
She's the head of the Consumer Protection Agency.
Yeah. Yeah. So she has to be very careful about what she says and everything like that. Like right now, she's going against the banks. That's not an issue.
So I mean, it's pretty obvious though that by her actions, like if you could say that she would be in support of Bernie over Hillary.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the good old fact that Elizabeth Warren herself went into an interview quite a while ago talking about how Hillary Clinton actually flip-flopped on something. And this was concerning a bankruptcy law that she was totally against whenever Elizabeth Warren explained it to her, and she actually grasped it very well when it was explained to her. But whenever she became a senator and that same bankruptcy law came back up in a different name again, she voted for it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't pinpoint that one thing and say exclusively because
it's not just
of that.
one thing.
Well, what's the other things?
Okay, there's her support of traditional marriage that flipped because of polls. Her support of the
Obama was the same thing.
Yeah, but I don't care at this point. Like it doesn't.
But
like for me, Obama wasn't that the candidate. I'm not voting for Obama versus her.
Would you have voted for him in both elections, though?
Do what?
Me and you were a year off from Obama's first election. We couldn't vote. We were 17.
I didn't vote in either of them.
Okay. Well, you couldn't have. Yeah. Okay. So you were like, no, I'm not doing it. Or were you not that active in politics?
I was active. I just didn't go to vote. It was like, sorry, by the time Obama's second term came around, he didn't do enough of the things he said he was going to do. Just things I knew he could get done if he wanted to, right?
You know what Obama needs to do
but you know why
he gets out of office?
No, the reason he didn't do them is so that he could get reelected.
Yeah, but he did. He had the ACH behind him. And so
I'm talking about closing Guantanamo. I'm talking about trying, other issues.
Weed,
not signing the NDAA again, or the format of the Patriot Act. There's certain things that needed to be done that he didn't quite do, and we saw how money changed things, although he still did a lot of good things. Don't get me wrong. But, whenever I'm talking about this particular race, I'm talking about the way in which Hillary goes about things. I'm sorry, Obama will be regarded as the president who, under his purview, gay marriage was legalized. Hillary saying the things she said on multiple occasions, not only in 2008 but also in 2004, versus a candidate who has been for it since apparently the time he was in college.
But I mean, I could have
there's
sworn that there was a time before. I could have sworn that he wasn't always as pro-marriage. I mean, he is Catholic.
No, he's Jewish.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Oh wow! I made a big mistake. Yeah, he's Jewish. I'm bad. I'm sorry.
And most Jews from the area he's in are cultural Jews and are probably secular humanists.
I done fucked up.
This is why he was, arrested for protesting segregation.
But because of his Jewish faith, I could have sworn that for some time he did not believe in a man and man or woman and woman relationship.
I don't think so. I think for a long time, before he's ever held any office, from my understanding, he was part of what was then the counterculture movement.
Well, you gotta think of yourself as a teenager, and you gotta think of him. Like, you yourself as a teenager, you're not necessarily concerned. It was likely that as he became 19, 20, 21, 22, that's when he adopted his more that's when most people really, because of their college influence, but that's when they really become liberal and progressive.
But my point is you have him, long before any other candidate, sitting there defending gay people on the Senate floor against a guy who's attacking gay people in the military. And it's these examples of him being ahead of the curve that, to me, make him a wonderful president, someone who can actually push progress forward in this country. So whenever you have these examples of flip-floppery, I'll give you a few more. Let's see. You have an example of her view on TPP, her view on the
transcontinental pipeline.
Yeah, the TPP the trade deal.
Oh, that's right. The
Pacific Partnership.
Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah, and then also on the Keystone Pipeline. Also concerning fracking and her inability to distinguish on that. Also, several of the things that she's recently adopted and tried to take credit for in some instances, like the $15 an hour thing, are just, it's disingenuous. You can't outright call it always a total flip-flop, but it's just enough of one to be, for anyone who's discerning, questionable in the likes of, why are you making these decisions? Is it because it's all of a sudden favorable to you? That's what it seems like.
Can she not change her decisions or her ideas or her beliefs as quickly as a person that you changed from Hillary Clinton, from Hillary to Bernie?
It's perfectly.
Is that person a flip-flopper? Is that person not sure in their belief because they suddenly changed something that was more to their favor?
No,
Bernie Sanders was always in their favor, but they chose Hillary. You changed their mind very quickly. They changed within a month. Are they the same type of flip-flopper?
Okay, whenever I'm saying it this way, I'm saying that the poll shifted first. She could have changed her mind based on the purview of the arguments that came up on the Senate floor and based on several different factors of things that should have been obvious to anyone with a brain. The point concerning things like hydraulic fracturing, the Keystone Pipeline, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership is that previous record shows these things are bad for most people living in the U.S., and her initial decision or inclination to vote for it shows that she is not in touch with the majority of people. So,
well, the majority of people, you say majority of people, the majority of people aren't involved in politics.
Yes, but the majority of people are affected.
But they won't, but the majority of people also want what is best for them. So technically, if you look at it, fracturing or nuclear technology, or whether it be a trade partnership where we continue to import more than we export, which has been economically beneficial to Americans for the past 50, 40 years, as far as the majority of Americans. Yes, 10%, 30%. If you look at real unemployment, um, at points, they haven't benefited. Majority have. Um, then you would see the majority of Americans would actually support fracturing, and they would support that nuclear technology, or they would support the TP, or even there was actually a lot of Democrats that even support the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah, but these are
So
generally bad ideas for other reasons that are far more important than that.
that you see, that you understand, but the majority of Americans
Yes,
don't, because
but
they
the
only
difference
see
in
the immediate. They see what benefits them immediately.
Yes, but the difference in the understanding is the fact that I don't think that the majority of of Americans actually see it that way. At least not the majority of the people in the party that are concerned with it.
Why I see what the majority of people believe whenever I look at consumption numbers. Whenever I look at consumption numbers, okay, I mean, I can look at anybody's room and see that they can be against major companies, but they still buy products from those major companies.
Some things you have to buy though because they're the current paradigm. Like I'm totally against the big oil industry and stuff like that. It's destroying our planet and it's affecting our climate and will likely cause the Holocene extinction.
Why'd you start it, Justin?
But guess what? I have to have gas to get to work, right?
Do you have to have gas?
If
Because the Ford made a vehicle. I mean, yes, I mean the battery's expensive, but Ford made a vehicle in the 1990s that ran on electricity. Electric cars have been around since the 1920s, and
Yes,
you can get a Prius, you can get a Chevy Volt, and you can get
not without
there's
credit, not without money,
okay.
not
How do you establish good credit?
through buying things and getting a credit line set up and establishing a good credit score. The thing is, it's
Exactly.
kind of hard to do that when you're really poor.
Yes. Well, technically, credit is actually pretty easy to get when you're poor. It's
Well, no,
it's the in the end paying for the credit that is
that's
incapacitated.
really too.
You get stuck into that debt system, which is where people who
Which is set up, by the way, to get you stuck in it.
that's why you see tile ponds in a majority of poor areas. That's why you see bail bonds in majority of poor areas. That's why you see thrift shops and pawn stores and everything like that. It's based off of feeding off of that poor, debted mentality.
So, but the issue that it is also is when you're poor and you don't have any credit, it's hard to get started even to begin with. So you have to go and buy a car from a used car lot, which you're not going to get an electric car. You're going to get whatever you can get so that you can go to work to eventually get enough money to try and be green.
Okay, so what is your miles per gallon?
On the current car that we have now, I think we just recently got a 2011 Toyota Corolla. The gas mileage is pretty good.
What is it?
I'm not sure exactly, but it doesn't take much to fill up, and I hardly have to fill it up ever.
Is it above 30 miles to the gallon?
Probably.
Okay. I have a 2002 Mitsubishi Mirage. It's a 4-cylinder, and it gets 31 miles to the gallon.
But
It was built in 2002, and it was built by unions in Japan. And you could easily buy that car. Actually, anybody could easily buy that car. They're only worth about $2,000.
My
But
problem.
they are tanks. So if there is a will, there's a way to find a way. Like you have people to this day who took a car, like you went above and beyond in your understanding and your knowledge of atheism. You researched it, you looked into it, you researched it, you learned, you read, your mind just sunk all that stuff in.
Yeah.
Well, you have the same people who see that, okay, well, oil companies are bad. I don't want to support oil companies. What I'll do is I'll buy a regular car from a used car lot, and then I'll go find cheap replacement parts, and I'll make a car that runs on used vegetable oil from local restaurants, which will give that away for free, by the way, for the most part.
Yeah, but
Because
here's my problem.
they have to pay a fee to get away with it, anyways.
Here's my problem. It's still a combustion engine.
It's still a combustion engine, but you're running on vegetable oil is technically not supporting an oil and gas industry. You're technically being self-sufficient.
Yes, but it's still the problem. The biggest problem I have with it is not where it comes from. It's the fact it is what it is and it does what it does in reality, which is affect the climate adversely to the point that we're on the brink of a Holocene extinction.
Okay,
that
but
will
what's
include
worse,
us.
vegetable oil or oil?
I would probably say crude oil is the worst after
Okay, so
refining.
so
Okay, I would put it like this, right? Diesel is probably worse than vegetable oil, but vegetable oil is probably not better than regular gas. But
well, vegetable oil is better than regular
no,
gas.
because you have to refit. No, you have to refit your car to run basically like a diesel engine in order to use vegetable
but
oil.
a diesel engine is more efficient
Yes, it is,
than
but it
a
runs
car
on a
than
less refined product.
than a gasoline engine. It burns more of the fuel. It produces less exhaust. The exhaust, the more the fuel is burnt, less of the exhaust is composed of the actual combustible material.
Yes, but my point is it's a less refined product, and whether or not you have that pollution settled in through the air, or whether it's coming out through the engine over time, and the product of grease, or however other way that you would oil it up and change out oil and do all that other good crap. The point is I would still say that you're still doing harm. We need to totally move away from this very quickly, or we're going to find ourselves in a world of hurt, like 4 or 5 generations down the line.
Right. So wouldn't you say that like building your own car and then teaching others how to build their own car based on vegetable oil wouldn't that be the better course of action than continue to use oil, but then say
I
on the
think
side?
I think the best course of action is to move to electric motors.
It's like saying it's like saying I hate how the Philip Morris can sue small poor countries for banning the sale of cigarettes because they own copyright material on the cigarette, but then smoking cigarettes.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, everyone's going to have some level of hypocrisy to the things they do, but that doesn't mean I sit here and I'm like, okay, it's okay. No, like they're concerning like big oil and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We need to move our transportation either to free public transportation that relies upon electric working, like electric motors, or some sort of Tesla style car
Yeah.
battery. You know, stuff like that. And then the
Teleportation.
power grid needs to be based off of alternate clean energies like wind, solar, wave, or any other type of technology that we can.
That includes nuclear.
Yeah, I would say it includes nuclear whenever we can get fusion working properly.
Well, no, you have nuclear that is well safe. You have liquid thorium reactors that are far safer than conventional nuclear. They can't implode. They operate at atmospheric temperatures. Their safety systems are well known, well enough to contain a spill or confine an issue if there is one. It can.
Yeah.
The worst thing is that the brass inside the chamber has to be clean, but the oil, the engine, the liquid, the thorium, the liquid thorium reactor, it can burn conventional nuclear waste into fuel that then degrades at a faster rate and is much more safer to store inside the earth and things like that and store near people than conventional nuclear rods. So there is nuclear technology. That's the thing about people seeing a way past what the norm is. There's a will, there's a way. Somebody else went, okay, well, conventional nuclear technology is bad. There's bad nuclear waste. It can be made into weapons. How do I solve that problem? And they solved it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they're like in the meantime, let's go off of the solar and the wind and the wave. When I say
Only
wave,
a few
power.
areas can really benefit from that. You can't. I mean, because of the fact that land and wind, with like you can build mass wind farms in let's say Wisconsin, I think it is.
Yeah.
Because Wisconsin is right there between they receive the majority of winds that all the weather and everything like that accumulates in that area. They get the headwinds. They get the cold fronts. They get the warm fronts. They get the wind. So you can you can build a massive wind farm there, right? Because we have technology now that tells us where the best places to plant these things are.
Yeah. But no, like
You would have to
there's.
then build an upgrade system to get to the rest of the United States.
Have you heard of this? It's called Infinite Recharge Cell. It's a new battery technology that they're hoping to have on the market in the next couple of years. Basically, the battery can be recharged an infinite amount of times and it doesn't lose potency.
See, I'm wary of things that say that they're solve alls.
Okay, whenever I say infinite, it probably actually means
What's the catch?
Okay, it probably means far, far, far many more times than what the current technology can.
Okay.
That's probably what they're probably determining this off of is them depleting the battery, then recharging the battery, then depleting the battery and recharging it, and seeing what the difference in output is after each time, and they're not seeing the same gradual slope number of retries.
Oh, okay. See, yeah, that's the thing. Like that threw me off. It was like kind of like, yeah, and see, because I'm somebody who likes onset of honesty. If you tell me something is 98% efficient, but there's 2% that's a little bit off, I'll understand it. Even if it's like 90 to 10% or 85 to 15, as long as there is majority of it is, hey, it's rock solid, I'm behind it. Don't give me the rosy title, because at that point I automatically become suspicious.
Yeah. So like, there's a point though to this, like, and we've discussed the Tesla home battery in the previous episode. Or the gaming episode, sorry. But this, okay, so the template for this is set up to where we have the home batteries pretty much distributed at this point, and we have other mass batteries that we use offshore windmills for, and we take the charge and we distribute it out in more efficient ways than we currently do. So you get the grid off of dirty power, and you also get the rest of utility off of dirty power, and we'll see if we can save the planet.
Yeah, like I'm behind green technology. Don't get me wrong, and I'm behind the home battery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's very good.
I'm just saying, I don't want my great grandchildren to not be able to breathe on this planet.
Yeah, and then dude, that's perfectly understandable, especially for you, because you want children, you have children. Okay, I'm not gonna have any children. That's not in my plans. I don't want them. Never wanted them. Not gonna happen. I don't think it. No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
It's gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
Yep, you're gonna have 20.
It's gonna happen.
I don't even have a girlfriend. I have no interest in getting one. There's
the
there's
first
nothing
time
on
you
that
have
field.
sex, you're going to get her pregnant, and she's going to have 20.
Yeah. Well, see, it's funny you say that, Justin, because I actually once said that if I ever have children, it's either none or fucking 18 of them motherfuckers. It's either 0 or 100. There's no in between.
Yeah.
I'm doing it like prairie style, motherfuckers. Like 13 of these guys. No, but. No, I mean, no. See, that's understandable, Justin. You want, and you deserve that. That's the thing. Everyone deserves that. You deserve that. Everyone deserves that.
You could still have the common decency to say, hey, other people are going to be living here long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
Let's try and make sure that it's decent enough for them to actually go outside and enjoy it the same way I do.
Yeah. But I think we'll go ahead and end it on that point. Remember, people. Green Earth Day just happened. Recycle, all that stuff. Find ways to save on energy and water and use and everything like that. Small things.
And of course, all that good stuff.
Build model AT-ATs out of the pizza boxes.
Well, I think
certainly that one.
Our guests for coming today.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you, Justin, for bringing him on.
Oh, no problem. I mean, I was very, very excited.
I know.
Total fanboy. I went to go look at it. I didn't see that.
Maybe he can come back on some other time.
Try to remember to have him shout it out, so this way everyone on his channel can enjoy it as well.
Like, where did you have it posted on the?
In the description.
Not having as a guest, Aron is a creative scientist. State director of the American Atheist Movement is part of. Yeah. Oh, that part. I thought that you were talking about the part where I was like saying, that he's like my man crush because of who he was to me. growing up.
It is healthy to have bro love. It is healthy. It's official. There's a study done. It is officially healthy to have bro love.
Oh, yeah,
Love
no,
your
I know.
bros out there, people. Love them.
All
I
right.
mean, how official
Love
that
you-
study is, but whatever.
And girls, love your
really-
sisters.
Actually,
Everybody love each
don't
other.
have any.
Yes. But be safe. No more children.
Yeah.